half-term break, and I've got an interesting show for you today. Today, I'm going to be talking to Julian Golding. He's a friend of mine, but is also an ex-Commonwealth champion and is a PE teacher. And he recently has done something very brave that I am really proud of.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Yeah, so it's Thursday and it's 10 p.m. So it means we are counting down to the weekend, but this weekend is probably not as exciting as last weekend was, simply because this weekend heralds the start of a new half term. But on the plus side, it is the last half term before the summer holiday. So there's something to cheer about, even if it feels like it's one of those really, oh, I can't believe the holiday's over. I don't know if you've been like that over the last few days, where it seems like this is, it started off last week. I was like, yeah, I've got a whole week ahead of me. And then suddenly it's a case of, this is nearly over. I can't believe we are nearly at the end of this half term, but we've got a lot to celebrate. And in today's show, I wanted to talk about career changes, because for me, being a teacher and being in education was a second career for me. I started off as in my early 20s and 30s, I was in retail and I was a retail manager. And then at some point in my career, it wasn't quite going the direction that I wanted it to go. I wanted to go into personnel management, as it was called then, and it wasn't really happening. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to step out, do something very brave, because at the time I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, but I left a relatively well-paid job and I decided to take some time out, spent some time looking after my daughter, trying to decide what I wanted to do. And then I thought to myself, you know what, let me work at her preschool. So I worked at her preschool for a while, and then I decided, actually, what I'm going to do is get a job in a primary school as a learning support assistant. And I did that. And that was kind of the start of my journey. That was the start for me of thinking, actually, maybe teaching is the career for me. So it was really a career pivot. I moved from working in retail to like I said, to my early 30s, to then becoming an educator. And it was the best move that I've ever made. And in tonight's show, I really want to talk about making that career move. Have you done anything in terms of, have you made that career move? Have you had a first career? Is teaching your second career? I linked up with somebody on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and she was in her 50s and she had just gone into teaching. And I thought, you know what, that's fantastic. So tonight's show, we're going to be talking to Julian a bit later on, but I want to hear from you as well. Have you chosen teaching as a second career? What was your first career? What did you do before you entered the teaching profession? And was it the right move? Because sometimes we kind of, think, teaching, and those that don't know, might think, okay, teaching, yeah, it's one of those professions that you want to do because it's, it makes you think, maybe I want to leave school at 3:30 in the afternoon, I've got 13 weeks holiday, that's what appeals to you, but you don't necessarily know what's happening in between. And that wasn't necessarily for me. I kind of knew the realities of teaching. But Julian, we're going to speak to later on, who some of you, if you Google Julian, he's on Google. You Google Julian Golding, you'll see him there. Most of his photos, his athletics gear, he's represented Great Britain, but I'm going to let him do his introductions a bit later on, because his career journey in education has been a fascinating one. It's been really interesting. So you will want to stay for the whole of that discussion, because, where he's come from and where he is now, it's been an amazing journey. And I'm really proud of him. Like I said, he's as a good friend of mine. I've known him for, almost 20 years or so now, I think. So I knew him when he was in athletics. I know his wife really well, so I've got kind of personal connections. But it's been an epic journey. And I want you to be able to hear his story, but also what's happened to him more recently. Because again, what's happened to him more recently has been just as epic, just as interesting to listen to. And I think, when we look at people's journeys and we see people as teachers, we don't know that very often there's a backstory. They've not just landed. I remember most of my teachers when I was at school, and this was kind of 30 odd years ago, and they were in their early 20s and didn't really think much of it. But then we had some older, more mature teachers, and sometimes it can seem like teachers have been teaching for years, but that's not always the case. Some people do come into it late in their lives. And as somebody's just said, somebody here is 34, somebody has just left a message, sent a text in, saying they're 34, and they're a trainee teacher. And they were a team leader for an insurance company, but they are glad that they made the change. Thanks a lot for that, Farhan. And I think that's the thing. It's like, Farhan, it'd be interesting to find out why you decided to make that change, because I think, going from insurance to teaching, very different. Are you primary or secondary? Let me know. If there's anyone else that's had that experience of changing careers, please do, send a text in. Let's get this conversation going, because I think it's important to understand that when you go into teaching, you are coming in with a wealth of other experiences, especially when you come in later in life. You come in with a wealth of other experiences, and you are able to use those in your role as a teacher. And I think that's what's fascinating. I know somebody who, came into teaching prior to, and they were an archaeologist. Somebody I worked with in a previous school who was a year 3 teacher, had previously been an archaeologist, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating that but what they brought to our primary science lessons was absolutely amazing, because I didn't know anything about primary teaching, about rocks and soils and all that kind of thing, but this person was able to really bring a depth of knowledge that I wasn't able to. So, please feel free to send a text, call in. I'll take your calls when Julian jumps on. I'll take your calls there as well. Femi, who knows Julian, has said Julian was at a point the most talented sprinter in Britain. 20.19 time in 200 meters was the club record, Blackie from Bromley AC Athletics Club, for so long until Adam Gemily broke it. So somebody who knows Julian's background really well. So I've got a call coming in. Let's see who we've got on the line. So yeah, Julian, like I said, is very well known, and it's there's a few people who the government had the Teach First scheme, and they had the military into teachers scheme, but it's one of those professions where actually, if you give people a chance to share what their experiences are, then they have a wealth to share with the children. Who do we have on the line with us now? PB Gads 23. Who have we got? PB Gad, can you hear me? You might want to turn your microphone on.
Hello.
Hi, Julian.
It's me.
Hello, it's you. How are you?
How are you? I'm very good. How are you?
Great. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for joining me on the Late Late Show on Teachers Talk Radio.
It's a pleasure.
Lots of people. I've been putting this out on social media over the past few days, and there's a lot of people that are really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, because tonight's show, Julian, is all about how you changed your career from being an athlete, international athlete, to being a class teacher. And I didn't want to kind of say too much, because it's your story, and people have already begun to share how they've had their career change as somebody moved from being an insurance broker to being a class teacher, and I think your story is fascinating. So thank you for joining me tonight. And for those that don't know you, can you give us a bit of background about who you are and what you did prior to becoming a class teacher?
Okay, so I've got a long story, but I'll be succinct. My name is Julian Golding. I'm a former international sprinter. I competed for Great Britain over a 16-year period, over 200 meters. One of the highlights of my career was winning the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur in 1998, some 23 years ago, Amanda.
Wow.
I won the gold medal in the 200 meters, won the gold medal in the relay. I went to the World Championships the year after that. I finished top 10 in the final of the 200 meters. That year I was ranked top 9 in the world that year. Went to Olympic Games, represented Great Britain, Sydney 2000. So yeah, I've had a long international career as a sprinter, which started when I left school.
Okay, fantastic. So that was your first career. Like you said, you started it from when you were at school. So
Yes, it was.
your first career as a sprinter, but not where you currently are. So how did you get from being an international athlete, traveling all around the world, representing your country, across the globe, representing your country in the Commonwealth Games? How did you go from there to becoming a PE teacher?
That's a good question. Now, with international sprinting or with sports in general, there is a shelf life. So any international athlete, doesn't matter what sport you are competing, there's going to be a shelf life. And I got to the stage where I was probably about 30. I had a succession of injuries, and I knew that my career was coming to an end. And I
Okay.
didn't know what I wanted to do. At that time, I had a really good coach at that time. He
Mm,
said to me, Jules, would you consider doing some coaching? I thought, no way, coach is a mug's game. Initially, I thought, hold on a minute, someone helped me to get to where I was today. So I thought, you know what,
okay.
let me check it out. So I remember him doing some coaching at a school, a primary school in Kilburn in Northwest London. I
Yeah.
remember watching him thinking, you know what, I could do this actually. I remember watching the kids' engagement and really enjoying the activities that my coach put on. I thought, you know what, let me try that. So he gave me a slot the following day, and I simply replicated what he did. And straight away, that's my light bulb moment. I thought, you know what, I could do this, and that's how it
Okay.
started.
Okay. And what was that, primary or like young, was that primary age children or secondary age children that
So it
you?
was it was it was it was both. It was both primary and secondary
Okay.
students.
Okay. So that's when you had your light bulb moment. So what was that light bulb moment? Was it that you wanted to work with children and young people, or was it specifically I want to go into teaching?
I think at that time, I suppose I enjoyed the environment that I was in, and
Okay.
I enjoyed the fact I was giving back to my community and also helping kids. So I did that for about 2 years, just doing that part time, and then I got a job as a community sports coach at a secondary school, and I was working there for about a good probably about a year or so. That my line manager at that time, she was a member of SLT, said to me, Jules, I've got to teach a lesson on sports psychology to my sixth form students. I says, listen, I've never competed internationally. I don't have half the experience you have. Would you mind teaching it? I thought,
Okay.
yeah, I'll give it a go. I said, what am I teaching? He said, sports psychology. I can give you the scheme of work just so that you've got a guide to work with. And I remember in that class watching the sixth form students, and they were literally drinking out of my hands, literally, and having that attention from them, and
Mm,
being able to share my experience, but also linking it to the learning objectives. That was what got me at that time. And then my line manager said to me, "You know what, Jules? I think you'd be a great teacher." So to be fair, I think I really enjoyed it. I said, "I don't have a degree." He said, "Don't worry about it. We'll sort it out." So what do you mean? So let me speak to the principal. If you're serious about it, I'm sure the principal can help you out. Spoke to the principal. So no problem, Jules. We'll pay for your degree and we'll help you to get your teacher training and qualification. And that's how it
wow.
started.
Okay. So the school offered to pay for your degree.
Yeah.
How was that in terms of going back to studying again?
It was tough because I hadn't studied in almost at that time, 16, 17 years since I finished my A levels in 1994. I finished my A levels, and then going back to university in 2010. It was been a long
Mm,
time, but I just dedicated my time to achieving a goal. And the good thing for me, because I was successful at my sport, I kind of transferred all that knowledge, all that effort, all that psychology about performing, and I just literally turned that into academia. I thought, well,
okay.
if I could be a Commonwealth champion, if I can represent my country, if I can go to Olympic Games, then I must can do well at this degree. It was tough because I've not studied in a while, but
Yeah.
even as a sportsman, I was a very studious sportsman. I just didn't do my sport, but I studied my sport. I studied the anatomy. I studied physiology. I studied about rehabilitation. So when you injure yourself, how you get back. So I studied. I wasn't just an athlete. I was very much a studious athlete, and that's why my coach suggested that if I did some sports coaching, he thought that I would do really well as a teacher.
Okay. Okay. So for those joining us on Teachers Talk Radio on the Late Late Show, we're talking to Julian Golding, who's former Commonwealth champion, but is now a class teacher. And I'm talking to him about the change, his pivot in his career. If you've had that experience, please do send a text message in, or if you'd like to ask Julian a question, please, send that in via text as well. So Julian, you finished your degree and you got a first class honours. You must have been very, very proud of that.
Yes, I was. It was tough. It was hard work. But I have to say that I have a very, very supportive wife who helped me through this process, because when I was doing my degree, I was doing a full-time degree and also working full-time at the school as well.
Wow.
And I have 2 younger children and I was coaching.
Wow.
So there's a lot of going on at the time. So my wife and I had an agreement is that when I finish work at the school, then I'll do my coaching for a couple of hours. I'll come home and just study.
Wow.
So I didn't have to deal with the children, or do the cooking or anything like that. I literally came home and I had my head down. And I did that for 2 years straight.
Gosh.
So without support of a supportive wife, I tell you now, I would not have achieved the first class degree.
Big up, Samantha. Enough respect to Samantha. So it's great to see that hard work and that effort has paid off. So talk to me about your first teaching job. So you did your qualification, you got your degree.
Yeah.
Did it enable you to get your QTS straight away? What happened there?
Okay, that's another long story. So when I started this journey, I didn't know about QTS. I mean, what was QTS? I thought, once I get my degree, I can teach.
Right.
Then I realized that you have to have a qualified teacher status.
Okay. Which
is fine, no problem. And so, so what do I have to do to get that? Then I realized that you had to pass the professional skills test, which was maths and numeracy test. Then I planned myself going to a school direct training program for a year. No problem at all. I was always good at English in school, so I hadn't a problem with English. But there was a certain part of the maths QTS test that really it kind of tripped me up. And that's the first part of the test, when you have to have 12 questions fired at you, and you have to get 18 seconds to answer the question.
Wow.
Anyway, I failed that test 3 times, and which meant if you fail the QTS test 3 times, the professional skills test rather, you then are blocked out for another 2 years.
Right.
So when I got my degree in 2012, I then couldn't then go on to get my QTS in 2014. Okay, no problem then. I used that 2 years to get my experience. I had my own classes. I was teaching a GCSE class as an unqualified teacher for 2 years, and I was teaching my core Ps. I was getting all the experience, but not being qualified as a teacher.
Yeah.
So this 2 years went, it flew by, as as the world of education does. It goes quickly, that the academic year. So I prepared myself again for this QTS test. Passed English the first time, failed the maths first time, failed the maths second time. I thought, no, I can't fail again. I just cannot fail again.
Yeah.
And what happened? I failed.
Oh dear.
So that is 6 times I failed that.
Gosh.
That test.
Painful.
And yes, it was painful. As you know, because you've shared this journey with me.
Yeah.
It just put me off.
Yeah.
Going for it, I was enjoying what I was doing. It was a, second career for me.
Yeah.
And it really did put me off. It really did put me off. But
So
did I give up?
Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
But I didn't give up. I didn't give up.
Yeah.
So what happened was I subsequently left that school where I was. The head teacher didn't want me to leave. I worked there for 9 years as an unqualified teacher, and it was a great experience. And it was a tough school in the sense that if you can kind of manage your behavior management at that school, then as far as I'm concerned, you can work at any school.
Yeah.
And I learned my craft at that school.
Okay.
Then I got a job at another school. And within a year of me having that job, I was promoted as head of year for year 7. They only had two year groups at that school because it was a brand new school. And then it was the head teacher at that school, the principal and the executive head teacher said to me, "Jules, we know that you haven't got a QTS, and we want to pay you more, but we can't." I says, "Yeah, you are a great teacher, one of our strongest teachers. Please, can you go for your QTS?" Because it put me off, and I failed. 6 times. I wasn't feeling it. And then the principal said to me, "Why don't you get a tutor?" And that was another light bulb moment. Why did I think of getting a tutor from before? It just didn't occur to me. Yeah. Anyway, I got a tutor. Her name was Barbara. She was amazing. Fantastic. She said to me from the first session with you, she said, I knew you could pass the maths. It wasn't a problem. All it was just perhaps need to calm down, think a little bit, and have certain steps to master the questions. Says you'll pass it. I
Okay.
had 3 sessions with her, and by at the end of the 3rd session, I knew I was passing my QTS,
Wow.
my professional skills test in maths. But I knew I was going to pass it. It wasn't even a case of me praying and thinking. I knew I was going to pass that test. Whereas before, every time I'd taken it, I was nervous, I had trepidation, I was doubtful. I never finished the questions. Some questions I never answered. I never finished in time. This one, I answered every question, finished in time. I even went back to answer some questions or to check my answers. It was easy. And I knew I was going to pass. So when I got the certificate and it said, congratulations, you passed your QT, you passed your math test, I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. I mean, that was a tense period for us all, because we all just were willing you on, just keep going. And I'm so glad that you did, and again, big up Barbara. But I guess the government obviously realised that the skills tests were not fit for purpose, because they actually scrapped them
the year after I passed.
Yeah. What are the chances? What are the chances? But you know what?
But I'm glad, for me, from a personal point of view.
Yeah.
That's a personal challenge for me.
Yeah.
That was my Mount Everest for me.
Okay.
Because I don't like maths. I've never liked maths.
Yeah.
And put under pressure to answer questions and think, for me, that doesn't work for me. So for me, so I'm glad I passed it. But also glad I passed with flying colours and with the confidence I knew I was going to pass. Even though they scrapped it, I'm glad I passed it.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really good. I've got a question for you that's coming on a text from Femi. I think you might know him. I think he said he trained with you years ago, but he's asked a question. He said, if I can ask you how well your injuries prepared, your injuries in athletics prepared you for your teacher training. The strength and fortitude built during the injury rehabilitation period prepared him for his life in academia. So how did your injuries in athletics, because obviously that's one of the reasons I'm guessing that you had to retire is due to injuries. So how did that prepare you for teaching?
Well, in 1995, 1996, I spent a lot of time in South Africa training for the Olympic Games.
Okay.
And I had just become an international sprinter, and my management agency paid for me to spend about 6 months in South Africa, broken up over a couple of months. And training had gone so well. And, I was favourite to make the team and to, be a part of the Olympic Games in 1996. I got injured. I had a really, really bad hamstring tear. I tore my hamstring, which took well over, 2 months to recover. That was a mental blow for me, because the Olympic Games is the pinnacle of any athlete that competes, any sports performer. If your sport is in the Olympic Games, that is a pinnacle. That is the very thing that you focus on, you dream about.
Sure.
You sleep and eat about, and not to be able to compete in Olympic Games. That gave me the strength and fortitude to continue, and not only just to continue, but to make sure that I go over hurdles along the way, because I was 21, fresh in my career, had been a junior international sprinter, top 10 junior in the world as an under 18, so as under 20. But when it comes to junior rank, senior ranks, it's completely different. So every hurdle, every obstacle you go through is designed to prepare you to go forward. Because sometimes we're not always going to have things given to us on a plate.
Sure.
And, sometimes you have to work twice as hard as the other person. So it really gave me that fortitude and mental toughness not to give up, even when you want to give up sometimes. And, a large part of my story, there's times when you're just mentally you're frazzled, physically you're drained, but you still got to push forward. You're still going to push forward. That taught me to push forward.
Yeah.
That taught me.
And what a great... Yeah. And what a great lesson that is for the students that you teach as well, because you've kind of got something that you can share with them in terms of the need for them to kind of keep pushing, keep, not giving up, having that fortitude of mind and the determination to continue. I'm gonna pause just there, Julian, because we're going to go for a short break with the news and an advert, and then we'll come back. I've got a couple more questions, and I know that some people were trying to call in. So Julian, just hold on right there, don't go anywhere, and I will see you after this short break.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. New research from the London School of Economics has shown that children born in the summer are being mislabelled as having special educational needs by their primary schools. Using census records for over 6 million children who were in state primary schools over the years 2008 to 2018, Dr. Tammy Campbell found that among children reaching Year 6 in 2018, 16% of autumn-born girls had been attributed SEND support at some point during primary school, compared to 26% of summer-born girls. Similarly, 28% of autumn-born boys were given support, compared to 40% of those born in the summer. Dr. Campbell stated that the study shows how rigid prescriptive